Welcome back, my friend. My name is Danny Dumas, and this is the Earn Your Title podcast. I'm going to tell you a news story. I'm going to read this news story, and I want you to just hold it in your mind, and then I'm going to come back to it at the end of the podcast. The headline reads, First responder assaults a disabled Army veteran when he hits them with the butt of a shotgun. So just hear that, kind of hold that in your head. And we're going to be talking about the news. We're going to be talking about what's going on in Minnesota. We're going to be talking about what's going on in Venezuela, in Iran, all over the world, where it just seems like the world is going crazy. It seems like we are more divided than we've ever been. It seems like the left and the right could never be on the same track. It just seems, I don't want to say hopeless, but it's sad. It's very sad. The other day, I came home and I try not to watch. I watch the news at work, but when I'm home, I just kind of leave it alone. It's not something I interact with. I don't think it's healthy. And my wife said, "Did you see the shooting in Milwaukee?" And I said, "The Good, Renee Good." He's like, "No, there's another one. What do you think? It looks really bad." And so I watched the shooting of Alex Peretti. And she said, "What do you think?" I said, "Well," and it was it was 30 seconds. It was the only video I'd seen. And with the video that I saw, and many of you have seen it, was a bunch of, it looked like ICE. I couldn't tell with the 30-second video, but it looked like ICE agents. And there was someone that they had grabbed someone and put him on the ground, and they were hitting him in the head. It was just a dog pile on top of this guy. And then everybody backs up and you hear a shot and someone fell down. She's like, did they murder that guy? And this is what the point of this podcast is going to be. It was my response. And it's taken me a while to get there, and I'm still not good at it. I said, I don't know. I don't know what happened. And the reason that is so powerful, and the reason it's taken me a long time to get there, and I wasn't always there, is because that is the truth of the situation. She's like, well, you don't, what's your opinion? I said, well, I mean, in this 30-second clip, I said, if that man was unarmed and he was just resisting the officers, he didn't grab for their gun, and a cop pulls his gun out and shoots him, I think that ICE agent should be charged with murder. Then I said, but if he had a weapon with him and he goes to pull for his weapon and while he's being arrested and the ICE agent backs up and shoots him, that's probably a justified shooting. But the reality is, I don't know what's going on. I don't know. And as this world gets crazier and crazier, I'm hoping that you can default to, I don't know. I don't have the information. Now, I'm not asking you to never have an opinion. I'm not asking you to never formulate what side a topic that you're on. But when you're given 30 seconds, 45 seconds, maybe minutes of information, and you're automatically determining whether or not something is true or false, or someone's guilty or innocent, I want you to realize you don't have enough information. So the answer to what do you think is going on is, I don't know. You truly don't know. With Renee Good, I watched it. Now, I'm probably going to be biased towards the first responders. I'm a fireman. I interact with a lot of policemen. Most of them are good. I have a good relationship with about 10 cops. I like all of them but one. One of them, he's going to get beat up one day, and I'll understand why. I'll just leave it at that. So I understand I have a bias. So I'm going to see something and look at it towards, the first responder. You can't necessarily judge somebody by a 30-second clip. And so I have to realize I have that bias. And because I have that bias, I can't jump and say, well, yeah, that guy probably deserved it. He probably pulled his gun out. Oh, I don't know that. I can't see that from the video. Now, as more video comes out, maybe I'll start to develop a thought process, and I'll come down on one side or the other saying, yes, I believe that. But that shouldn't be based on my political leaning. It shouldn't be based on my, anything other than this is what I see and I can understand it, and this is what the facts are. Now, if I was on the jury, I would hope I'm going to come up with an opinion, right? I'm going to make a judgment, but that's when I get everything presented to me. I think it's important that we're looking at everything and we're trying to hold two opposing opposing viewpoints in her head at the same time. And this is a skill, and I haven't been there. But I want the skill of saying, if this guy pulled a gun while he was being arrested, even if he was legally allowed to carry it, I think it's justified for that officer to shoot him. I can also hold the thought in my head, if this guy didn't do that and that police officer shot him for no reason, that's not justified and it's murder. I can have that in my head, both those thoughts. And when you ask me what I think, my answer is I don't know, because I have both thoughts in your head. You can't just go down one road because you lean politically one way or the other. When I started this podcast, I didn't want you to know exactly who I voted for. Now, you can probably, I know I'm a Christian, right? So I'm going to probably lean more right, but I never wanted that to be part of this. Like even my Christianity, while I'm never afraid of sharing it, I didn't want this to be a Christian podcast. I wanted to be a Christian doing a podcast, if that makes sense. I wanted, when I'm talking about, like being faithful to your wife and respecting her and loving her, those are biblical principles. But I didn't want to push that on somebody. I wanted you to see who I am. And if that's something that appeals to you, I get my morals from the Bible. But I didn't want to push that, if that makes sense. I want you to hear what I think about it, knowing that I put my filter through what Christianity says. Do that in your life. Like your political ideology shouldn't change how you see something and go, oh, because I'm a Trump supporter, I believe this, or because I'm a Biden supporter, I do this, or if I'm left or right. Look at each situation individually and be okay with saying, I don't know. And I haven't always been good with this. I was telling my wife, as she asked her if she remembered the story, a couple years ago, we went to Zion National Park on our anniversary trip. And we're outside in the most beautiful place in the world. And there's a couple, and they're both still wearing masks. At this point, there was no mask mandate. You could walk into anywhere, do anything without a mask on because of COVID. This is several years, 3 or 4 years past COVID. And this young, I would call them, late 20s, early 30s couple looked healthy. We were all hiking, right? And they were both wearing a mask. And what stood out to me, they were obviously in a romantic relationship. And I don't know if you can call it kissing, but they kissed with their mask on. I just remember thinking, these stupid people are virtue signaling that how safe they are and how much they care about other people to not get COVID. So they're going to be wearing this mask. I like, you're living in fear, lady. Dude, grow a pair, take the mask off and kiss your girlfriend or your wife or whoever she is. You're outside. You're not even like you're on a crowded bus. You're in middle of New York. There's people everywhere. We are outside at Zion Park, one of the most beautiful places in the world, and you're both wearing masks. This is ridiculous. I assumed that. I assumed that they were liberal. I assumed that they leaned left. I assumed all these things. But what was the reality? Maybe they had a kid that has leukemia at home and can't get sick. And this was their one chance where they had some family members that were taking care of them, and they knew they couldn't get sick, so they were going to wear their mask no matter what, even outside. So the reality is, I don't know why they're wearing masks. I assume that, and I really fight that. I see in the news, Nicolas Maduro, the president of Venezuela, or dictator, depending on how you're looking at it, was arrested. And there were some people like, this is amazing. This is outstanding. This is the greatest thing we've ever seen. And there's some people like the U.S. went in and stole a president. This is wrong. It's regime change. We can't have this. Now, knowing some Venezuelans, my wife being from Chile, seeing their feeds, to me, it seemed like there was a lot of Venezuelans, people from Venezuela that were really, really happy about it. But do I know this is going to be great for Venezuela? No, I don't. Do I feel like it's better. But we could be setting them up for someone just as worse. The answer is, I don't know. I'm not in that world, right? I'm not going to try to, you just say it. Yeah, this is great because Trump did it. Or this is terrible because Trump did it. The truth is, I don't know. It seems like people from Venezuela are happy. So I'm going to be happy for them. And then we'll see. And maybe, as we go down, we'll see if Venezuelans get freedom of speech, if they get to a freely elected president, then it's a good thing. And now I can make a decision. Yeah, man, that was good. I'm glad we did that. But for everything, for Iran and for, like North Korea and Russia and Ukraine, all these things, be willing to say, I don't know. So let's go back to my story. My story was about a first responder who hit an old disabled Army veteran with the butt of a shotgun. What is your initial feelings on that? That seems terrible. When I said first responder, what was your thought? Did you think, man, I can't believe a cop would do that? So I'm going to start adding to the story. What if I told you it wasn't a police officer that hit a disabled veteran? What if I told you it was a fireman? Does that change? Because it's interesting. There's two YouTube channels that I like. One is called Donut Operator. He does usually it's like funny police chases. It's the Florida man, on meth. It's wrestling an alligator and there's shootings and things. It's from an entertaining side. And then there's another one, the civil rights lawyer, where it's cops violating people's rights and doing the wrong thing. And on the Donut Operator, he was a former cop, so he obviously errs on the side of, the Second Amendment, and cops are trying their best, and the people in the comments are usually encouraging, yeah, that cop did a good job putting that guy down, blah, blah, blah. Or if you go to the civil rights attorney, those people hate cops. And everything they see, they go through the filter of, this is terrible. So does it make a difference when I told you that this wasn't a police officer? Because if you like cops, then you're like, yeah, maybe the guy deserved it. But if you hate cops, yeah, that's what cops do. Well, it wasn't. It was a fireman. Does that change? So let me add one more thing. That fireman was me. Now, maybe you've never listened to this podcast. You're like, man, this is a jerk. The dude hit an old dude with a shotgun. This is terrible. Or maybe like, man, I've listened to, this might be episode 122. I think I have to look and see. If you've been with me from the beginning, you're like, man, I think Danny was a decent guy. He's trying to help men become better husbands, fathers, and leaders. I can't believe he would hit somebody with a shotgun. Doesn't seem like something he would do. So let me add to the story. The story is, and it's based on a true story, and all of it is not true. I was on a medical call. I got called by the wife of a disabled Vietnam vet, and he was sitting in a wheelchair, and he had told his wife he was having chest pain. And because he was having chest pain, we got called. I'm operating as a paramedic. I'm a lieutenant. I'm in charge of the scene. I said, sir, we need to get you down to the hospital. He told me, I'm not going to the hospital, but he was so intoxicated. He didn't know what month it was or who the president was. He couldn't make his own decisions. So we were going to make his decisions for him. And because we were making the decisions, the decision was, you're going to the hospital. He said, I'm not going. Now I'm in a small apartment. I'm probably 5 to 8 feet away from this guy. There's a coffee table between us. I'm like, sir, you're going to go or we're calling the cops. He goes, I guess you're going to call the cops. So I get on the radio, I ask dispatch, hey, could you send me a police officer, please? So we're waiting for the police officer to because we're going to force him to go. And he said something to me, and I'm looking down, and I'm filling out a paper run report. I'm not going. You can't make me go. I'm like, sir, you're going to go. I wish we could make this easy, but you're going to go. He said, well, I guess we're just going to have to lock and load then. Now, have you ever seen any Vietnam movies? And I've told this story before on this podcast. That's when you put a round in the chamber and you're going to go out into the jungle, and these Vietnam vets, and this guy he was intoxicated Vietnam vet. He said, I guess we're going to have to lock and load. He wheels his wheelchair backwards. And as I'm looking up, I didn't see it on the ground, but there was a soft shell shotgun case, the kind like you zip up. He flips it over and he pulls up a shotgun. Now, if I was a police officer, I would 100% be justified of pulling my weapon and shooting him. As I look at you today, I can see down the barrel of the gun. I can see it. Like, I close my eyes, I see this guy, and I see the barrel of a single shot shotgun. I didn't think about this, but I realized I was very close to him, and I didn't think I could get out the door. Now, when I say I just reacted. I decided I was going to charge at the guy, and I ran at him. I covered, the 5 to 8 feet pretty quickly. My partner ran out the door as the cops were actually getting there, and I grabbed the shotgun, and I picked it up over his head, and I'm pulling it away from him. So could I have shot him? Absolutely. If I was a police officer, or even if I had just had a CPL, I could have shot him. He pulled a shotgun at me. But as I pulled that shotgun up, I noticed this was a breech action shotgun, meaning a single shot where you open it up and you stick shotgun shell, and the breech was open. So he couldn't have pulled the trigger even if he wanted to. And as I get the shotgun away from him, I realize not only is it open, is that there's no shotgun shell inside. While his wife is screaming at me, it's unloaded, it's unloaded, it's unloaded. So when, if this was just a body camera video, you see the shotgun and I shoot him and I kill him. And then later on it's like say I'm a policeman, policeman kills an unarmed, disabled vet with an unloaded shotgun. Wife was telling him, I told you it was unloaded the whole time. Would it have been justified? Yes, no. Now in the court of public opinion, it probably wouldn't have been. Legally, I think he'd be okay. He picked up a shotgun. So in my case, I grabbed it, and as I pulled away from him, the shotgun ended up, I had the barrel and I had it up. So the butt of the shotgun was above me. And I remember having some anger there, right? Like this guy just pointed a gun at me. And I had the thought, I'm going to smash this guy in the face. I had that anger. Just that, it was really fast. I mean, that whole thing happened in 2 seconds. I rushed him, I grabbed the gun, I picked it up, and I just stopped. And I realized this guy's old, he's drunk, it was unloaded. Like everything kind of came into my conscious, and I was able to stop myself. But at any moment, if I wanted to do that, it probably would have been justified, but I would have been judged by my actions. Like, why would you ever think to do that? Well, I wasn't thinking, I was responding. And so my hope is that when you hear stories and you don't have all the information, or maybe you think you do, but it's coming through social media or even coming through legacy media, realize that you might not have all the information. You might not know exactly how to interact with that information. And it's okay just to say, I don't know. I don't know why he would do that. I feel like I know Dan. I listened to his podcast. Why would he do that? I don't know. And when you can have a space, give yourself a chance to not react, to not say, these people, whether it's liberal or conservative or black, white, brown, whatever it is, and to truly just give yourself some time to think about it. Does that make sense? Why would they do that? I think if you can do that, you will make the world a better place. And if you make the world a better place, we can have a better world. I can only affect my world. You can only affect your world. But together, if we can get this idea of, hey, maybe everything the news is feeding us is not true. Or maybe even if the news is not trying to lie to us, which I would hope that most of the time news is not trying to lie, but they are trying to get clicks, right? That's how they make money. When you get eyeballs and you get attention, they make money, and it's a business. So realize, don't give them your anger. Don't give them your frustration. Don't let them divide you. There is plenty of truth on the left, and there's plenty of truth on the right. And, people that are doing something that you don't agree with, maybe they're trying to do it for the right reasons, and you think economically it's a poor decision. But they're still, their heart is in the right place. So if you said, I don't know, there's a new mayor in New York, and he has some socialistic ideas. I hope for them that is successful. I hope that New Yorkers can live a more economically viable life. I hope housing becomes affordable. I have some opinions on how those economic systems work, but I hope that they do. I hope that it's very successful and people are happy and flourishing. But we'll see, right? He'll get 4 years, and if we look at New York in 4 years, you can go, man, that wasn't a great idea. Look what happened. We have the numbers, we have the analytics, we have the things, Then you can make a pretty educated decision. Were things better? Yes or no? And then we have some proof. But right now, it's just starting. It's okay to say, I don't know what happens. I hope the best for him. And that's what I hope you can get out of this podcast, is to not know, right? We don't need to have all the information. We don't need to know everything. One last anecdote about knowing everything. Recently at work, we were talking about the Dukes of Hazzard. And if you didn't grow up in the 80s, early 90s, you don't know what the Dukes of Hazzard are, but there's two brothers, and they drive I think it's a Charger. It's an orange car with the Confederate flag painted on it. There's some racial undertones there, but in general, the movie or the show was pretty low key. These two brothers were just trying to get away from the cops most of the time, and they would always jump their car over ravines. And we were having a debate on I knew one of the Duke brothers was Luke Duke. I could not remember the name of the other one. I couldn't do it. I couldn't put my finger on what his name was. And I had the ability to look it up. Obviously, we could Google what are the two Duke brothers' names, but we didn't. We discussed it and tried to remember. And the reason I bring this up at the end is that just because you can have access to all the information, maybe you spend some time interacting with other people to try to get their take of what their information is, to try to get their ideas of the way things are. And someone's like, I think his name was this and this. And we were at work and and obviously it was a 2-second search that would have solved the problem, but we were able to talk about it. And it was a very simple thing, but 30 minutes in, someone's like, Bo, it's Bo and Luke Duke. We're like, yeah, that's it. Well, what did that do for us? By not looking up that information, it allowed us to interact. It allowed us to have a personal interaction. It allowed us to think and remember what things used to be like. You could go look was Alex Peretti, was it a justified shooting? And you can watch YouTube videos and there'll be two people with diametrically opposed views. But what might be better than to go look it up, right? Was it justified? Let's talk to this lawyer, this news pundit. Maybe you talk to somebody who feels like he was murdered. And maybe you talk to a friend that feels like the cops were justified. And you guys all get together, have a conversation. And maybe as a group, you can come to the realization that, you know what, maybe we just don't know what's going on. Maybe we don't have enough information yet. And that is what this is about interacting with people and making the world a better place by having honest conversations and seeing the other side and realizing that most people are good and are trying to do the right thing. And I think that's what will make the world a better place. So not knowing is okay. Talking to people's a good way to figure out what you do or don't know. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. My name is Danny Dumas, and I will talk to you later. Bye.